Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Being close to Shin makes her even more upset. Not knowing what to do, she goes to Shuya and cries, accusing him of ruining her life just to get Cho back with Shin and help her. Shuya tries to convince her that this is not true, but she walks away from him. Cho takes Shin to his mother at the hospital and tells her that he loves Shin so much that he was willing to marry Yun, divorce her, and ruin her life just to be a divorcee like Shin so their relationship could be accepted. Shin is hurt by his words and way of thinking, slaps him hard, and then walks away. The next day, Yun meets Cho, breaks up with him, and leaves. She returns to the office, where Shui approaches her, asking if she's okay, but she ignores his question. She talks to him about work and tells him to keep their relationship strictly professional before walking away. She continues to avoid him for several days, and every time he tries to talk to her, she brushes him off. A few days later, Yun meets with the programming team at the company to discuss developing the project she's working on. She wants to learn programming to improve the project, so she approaches a colleague who is a programmer and asks him to teach her. He tells her he's too busy and leaves, which discourages her. She works late on the project until everyone else leaves, and she's the last one in the office. Shuya is there watching over her to ensure she's okay, but she doesn't notice. When she finishes, she takes a bus home, and Shuya follows alongside the bus to make sure she's safe until she arrives. The next day, Shuya approaches Yun again, asking for her help in developing a game as a way to teach her programming, knowing she wants to learn. She refuses, saying she's not a programmer. Shuya insists, saying he's the boss and she must listen to him. He then sits her down and begins teaching her while she helps with the game development. She starts playing the game with him, and as they play, he lightens the mood, and she gradually starts treating him well again. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Shin's mother brings food for her son when she finds there's nothing available. The child enjoys it a lot and thanks her, which makes her reconsider accepting her son Cho's relationship with Shin. On another evening, everyone from the company goes out for dinner together. After they finish, Yun steps out and finds Shuya waiting for her. She walks up to him, and they take a walk together. Yun talks about work the whole time, while Shuya stays silent. As they drive home, Yun's mother calls, asking why she's late. Yun lies and says she's with Cho, not telling her that they've broken up, and then hangs up. Shuya gets upset about this, stops the car, and tells her to get out, sarcastically telling her to take the bus home and let Cho take care of her. He then leaves her there. At the hospital, Cho's mother talks to him and tells him that Shin's son is getting better and will be discharged the next day. She tells him he's free to choose whether to be with Shin or not, and that she won't object anymore after seeing how much he loves Shin and how sad he's been lately. Cho is overjoyed and thanks her. Later, he meets with Shin and asks her to get back together, assuring her that his family won't oppose it. However, she is conflicted and ultimately refuses, telling him that she will stay with her son and take care of him and that she won't enter into another relationship. Cho is heartbroken and doesn't know how to convince her. One night, Yun stays up late alone and Shuya comes by. He tries to get close to her, but she hits him on the head with a bottle and then runs away, not returning home. The next day, Shuya calls Cho from the hospital after receiving treatment, telling him that the idiot opened his head and that he should come to see him. He hangs up afterward. Yun arrives at the office, and Shuya notices she looks tired and hasn't slept since the previous night due to the fear of what she did to Cho. Shuya tells her to rest in his office while he goes out. After a while, when Yun wakes up, she finds that Shuya has brought her a lot of her favorite food. She's surprised by his kindness and starts eating without holding back, thanking him for being nicer and gentler with her than before. After she finishes eating, Shuya takes her to the hospital to see Cho, where she apologizes for hitting him. She then leaves and goes home, where she finds her parents and friends worried sick about her. Her mother sits her down and tells her that when she didn't come home the previous night, they thought something had happened to her and called Cho to search for her, as her mother still doesn't know that she and Cho have broken up. Cho comes to check on her, and she takes him outside to thank him for looking for her and making sure she was okay. She tells him she's no longer upset with him about what happened, and they agree to remain friends. Cho then leaves. The next day, at a pastry shop, Shin is shown a strange order by the employees. She is surprised to learn that it was placed by her ex-husband Ling, and she can't believe it, so she rushes out. On the way, she recalls memories of her time with Ling, including the accident he had, their divorce, and their child, who was still very young at the time. She arrives at a hotel room they used to stay in and knocks on the door. When it opens, she is shocked to see Ling standing there. Ling invites her in, and they sit together as he tries to explain why he left her back then. However, she refuses to listen and tries to leave. Ling then asks to see his son, and she agrees, telling him it's his right. She later takes their son out, and the three of them have lunch together. Ling tries to lighten the mood with his son, but the child clearly doesn't like him. That night, after dropping the boy off, Ling calls Cho. The boy tells Cho that he saw his father that day and that he's back from his trip, leaving Cho shocked and unsure of what to do. He fears that Shin might slip away from him. After being discharged from the hospital, Shuya comes to the company to take over the marketing department while Cho travels to Japan. Many of the employees are impressed by Shuya because of his sensitivity, smooth-talking nature, and charm, except for Yoon, who is indifferent. Every time Shuya tries to get close to her, she pushes him away and walks off. He makes several attempts to win her over, but each time she shuts him down and walks away. Eventually, she gets fed up and yells at him over the phone, telling him not to try to get close to her again, as she's only at the company to work and nothing else. Then she hangs up on him. She goes home and talks with Shuya, checking up on him. She asks him to bring her a specific gift from Japan, but he messes with her by pretending he won't bring it and then hangs up, leaving her to believe that he won't get it for her. Later, Shuya goes out to a restaurant for dinner. He overhears a couple of guys arguing with a girl and steps in to help her, but the girl ends up taking down both of them herself. Shuya is surprised to see that the girl is Ya, his old girlfriend. Ya is thrilled to see him, and they take a walk together before heading back to his place. Meanwhile, Shuya's secretary Amy calls, and when Ya answers, she assumes Shuya has been messing around in Japan and is dating someone new. The next day, Amy spreads this rumor to Yun and another colleague. Yun hears it but doesn't believe it. Then a colleague invites them to try out a new game that's about to be released, and they all go to test it out and end up enjoying it a lot. In Japan, Ya visits Shuya and takes him out to spend time together trying to get closer to him. At the same time, back at the company, Yun gets a call from Cho, who asks her to bring him a USB drive from his office and meet him at a specific location. She does as he asks, but when she gives him the USB, he tries to make her laugh, but it doesn't work. He then asks her to wait outside because he needs her, but she refuses and leaves. At the same time, Ling goes out with Shin, trying to ease the tension and convince her to get back together for the sake of their son. Shin seems to be seriously considering it. Meanwhile, at work, Cho gets scolded by the boss, and afterward he leaves the office in a bad mood. Yoon calls him and tells him she's waiting for him as he asks, so he rushes over, thrilled that she actually waited for him. They go out to dinner together, and Cho can't take his eyes off her. Yoon notices and asks him what's going on, to which he confesses that he's really into her and wants to start a relationship. Yoon is shocked and doesn't know how to respond. In Japan, Ya gets a call, and Shuya takes her to her destination. Before she leaves, she tells Shuya that she's heading back to China the next day for work. Shuya says that's great because he's also returning to China the next day, and they agree to travel back together. Back in China, Ling takes Shin home and apologizes for leaving her in the past. He explains that after the accident, he thought he'd never be able to move again, so he left her because he didn't want to be a burden. He asks her to get back together, but she remains silent. At that moment, Cho is watching them from a distance, feeling jealous and very upset. Shuya packs his bag in Japan and holds a gift he bought for Yoon, feeling happy that he'll see her soon. When he arrives at the company, he's surprised to find Cho being very attentive to Yoon, which makes Shuya jealous. He calls Yoon to follow him into his office. Once inside, he hands her his car keys and tells her to go get the gift he brought for her. Yoon is overjoyed and can't believe it.